Michelle, thank you so much for that quick turnaround on that work. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, folks.
Hi, Councilor Bach, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Councilor Mejia.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back on mute then.
All right, great, awesome. And yeah, in a second, we'll get going.
Okay, just
Hi,
one
Kenzie.
second, Madam Chair, and I will hit record. I just wanted to wait until you arrived.
Yep. No, I'm here. Sorry to be a little late, guys.
Okay, we're all set.
Excellent. All right, one second. Let me just get the opening statement up. All right. I'm calling this hearing of the Boston City Council's Ways and Means Committee to order. For the record, my name is Kenzie Bach. I'm the District 8 City Councilor for City of Boston and also the chair of the Council's Ways and Means Committee. This hearing is being recorded. It's being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FiOS Channel 964. The council's budget review process is about 35 working sessions and hearings, most of which we've had at this point. We've got one on the BPDA budget tomorrow morning, and that'll conclude our kind of department hearings period. And then we'll be considering the budget and resubmission throughout June. But we're really excited to have this public testimony hearing tonight to hear from members of the public about the budget. And if you are watching for the first time and you'd like to come get involved, we'd be happy to hear your testimony tonight. So you could send an email to ccc.wm@boston.gov, or if you go to boston.gov/budget-testify, that will explain how to enter your testimony as a video, for the record at ccc.wm@boston.gov, or come join us in the Zoom tonight. And I will be holding this chamber open till at least 7 p.m. For folks who might be interested in testifying, even if everyone's not here right at the start. Because our objective as the council is definitely to hear from as many members of the public as possible about really our values and priorities for the year ahead. You can also find the full budget schedule at www.boston.gov/council-budget. Today's hearing is on docket 0524 to 0526, orders for the FY22 operating budget, including annual appropriations for departmental operations for the school department and for other post-employment benefits. Docket 0527 to 0528, orders for capital fund transfer appropriations. And docket 0529 to 0531, orders for the capital budget, including loan orders and lease purchase agreements. So that's sort of just a formal summary of the many dockets that make up the City of Boston's proposed budget for FY22. But again, our focus tonight is on public testimony on any and all subjects and departments so that we can make sure we're hearing from you. So I want to thank my colleagues, Councillor Ed Flynn, District 2, Councillor Matt O'Malley, District 6, and also our President Pro Tem, and Councillor Julia Mejia at large for joining me tonight. We've got a number of members of the public who signed up to testify, and I know we also have a number of members of the public who have submitted videos, which we'll be playing in this hearing as well. So before I go to the members of the public, I just want to give my colleagues who are here with me a chance to just say a brief hello. So I'll go first to Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Councilor Block. This is a great opportunity for the public to weigh in on what's important to them. I want to say thank you to you, Councilor Block, for the professional way that you handle these budget meetings. I also want to say thank you to the City Council Central staff that does exceptional work for us behind the scenes. So I'm here to listen to the public. This is a great opportunity, and thank you, Councilor Block.
Great, thank you so much, Councillor Flynn. And yes, strongly agree. We have some invisible folks behind the scenes on the Council Central staff side who really make this whole virtual process happen, especially in the midst of this strange era that we're living through. And so we're very grateful to all of them. President O'Malley.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Great to be with you, as well as Councilors Flynn and Mejia, and I'm sure other colleagues will be joining us. Ditto, thanks for the tremendous leadership you have shown in your second budget season as chair, and of course, Central staff, who's done just remarkable work throughout this pandemic, particularly during this budget process. Like Eddie, I am here to listen to the members of the public. This is the most important facet of our job. It's something that we take very, very seriously. And I think there's some good things in the budget, but I also think there's an opportunity to make it even better as we talk about resubmission and as we talk about the next several weeks. So we'll look forward to hearing from our colleagues, friends, and neighbors. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you so much, President O'Malley. Councillor Mejia?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bach, for your hard work in keeping us well informed and engaged in throughout this process. I'm really eager to hear from the public. And I'm also enthusiastic to see and hear my colleagues also sharing enthusiasm for this second round of budget. I haven't seen so much enthusiasm from the council. Well, this is my first term, but I just think it's quite interesting, the tone and tenor that we have seen, and I'm really looking forward to being informed by those who put us in office, and look forward to amplifying your voices accordingly. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Councillor Mejia. Wonderful. So we will start with testimony, and I will just say, if you're watching this at home and you would like to testify, there's no presentation tonight. We're jumping straight into public testimony. So if you want to testify, again, email ccc.wm@boston.gov, or there's a link you can find at boston.gov/budget-testify. And we'd be delighted to hear from you. And like I said, I'll be holding the room open until at least 7 o'clock, just to make sure that people have time to come and log in. But in the meantime, we've got a couple members of the public who are here already. So first up, I will go to Kaimani James. And I'll just say, if you can make sure to, introduce yourselves, say your residence or affiliation, and then share your testimony with the public. Kaimani, you have the floor.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, am I breaking up or anything?
No, I think you're pretty good.
Alrighty then. Hello everyone, my name is Kaimani James. Advocate, and yeah, I'm an advocate. So, we're sitting here talking about a budget that's allocation would be overseen by a woman who has stifled student voice and downplays the trauma of children. And while the Boston City Council may have expressed concerns, no real action has been taken. And I'm really glad that this meeting is reported, because I'm going to need every single city councilor to go back and watch this. Everyone's priorities are messed up. And I say y'all and everyone as in every single city councilor, because no one is excused. Kids are being abused and you all want to talk about elections, dirt bikes, and pavement. Absolutely not. This is so sad. I should strip every one of your assignments, committee assignments, and positions on the city council and teach all of you how to effectively represent your constituents, because this is not how you do it. Are you all forgetting that students are a part of your constituency? This is really sad. The superintendent must go for reasons that I don't have time to outline right here this second, but I've already done. And so does other people need to be held accountable, both in her leadership staff and outside of her leadership staff. To see the city council, I need to see the city council calling for accountability unapologetically, quite frankly. It's just really sad. Everyone's priorities are messed up. Kids were abused and all y'all do is check off boxes and release statements while eating kale chips and doing things like taking money from police officers for elections that you shouldn't be running in. With all that being said, the budget does an inadequate job of ensuring BPS students are actually getting the resources they need. More money does not mean more resources. We need to zero in on how it's being allocated and spent. But before we do that, and before we hold budget hearings, we need to ask ourselves, is this superintendent even qualified to be running the district, let alone overseeing the implementation of the budget? And are you all even fit for your committee assignments and responsibilities to be doing the due diligence that you owe your constituency? I really hope that you can answer those questions before you start talking about numbers. Yeah, that's all. Thank you. You all need to do better, quite frankly.
Thank you, Kamani. Next up is Sharon Hinton, and then it'll be Jessica Felipe. Sharon, if you want to just unmute yourself and turn on your video if you'd like.
Thank you. Thank you for having this hearing. I've testified in many different spaces. I'm a parent, an educator, a community activist, and also president of a nonprofit, Black Teachers Matter Incorporated. I thank you guys for taking out the time to actually listen to the public. Specifically on the budget, I have a couple of questions that I've never really heard answered. I guess some of them are in process. I testified at the Boston School Committee asking about the $460 million that is coming down to the district and where that's actually going and how people are going to be held accountable for that. I've also asked many times about compensation and a vote for the Boston School Committee student representative. Everyone else gets paid. They do that same work and they're also students. And I was told that it was illegal because it was written out that way. And I'm just wondering if the Boston City Council can actually address that. And I've heard comments for that to happen, for the student reps to actually get a vote, possibly 2 student reps to be on the Boston School Committee instead of 1. And so I'm hopefully, and I've heard Anissa Sadie George, who is the chair of the Education Committee, actually testify at the Boston School Committee hearing and say she was supporting that. And now during election season, there are a lot of elected officials and candidates that are saying they support that. In addition, I was at a Zoom meeting in the last few days held by the Boston Coalition for Education Equity, discussing private fundraising by Boston Public Schools and the over $60 million that one of the 3 elite schools has. And I'm wondering if this Boston City Council can actually find a way to hold, and they have 501c3s, a lot of them, but hold these different schools and these fundraisers and these nonprofits to some kind of accountability in terms of where this money is coming from, how this money is being spent. And frankly, in my opinion, this opportunity to be able to raise this kind of money, my questions are, 1, should the school department budget be reduced by the amount that the school raises? If this one particular school can raise over $60 million, should we be giving them, and I say we because I'm a taxpayer, should we be giving them the same amount of money as if they didn't have this money? The other thing is, where is this money coming from? And what is the oversight on all these different areas? You guys, your biggest thing is budget. And so in these budgets, especially with all this money coming down to the Boston School Department, what are the checks and balances that are being taken? Hopefully this body the people that are here now and the people that are elected later on will continue this work. It didn't happen overnight, but hopefully you guys can initiate some kind of stopgap methods or some kind of way of accountability and different layers of accountability. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Sharon. Definitely, we've expressed to the school department a strong interest in the in how they're using their ESSER funds, which granted has not been articulated yet, and I agree with you, is an important area of concern for the council and for the public. So, thank you for that. Jessica Felipe, I see you, and you are up next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you great.
Okay. Sorry for the background noise. So I am I am a resident of Grove Hall. I live on Stanwood Street, and I have 5 children. And for some time now, we've been talking about a youth center, and it keeps going back and forth. I'm hearing different things about budget is available, but it's not being passed. And so I'm really here to see if you all can come through for us, because now I am in Mattapan, so I have to find different activities in different sections of the city for my kids to engage in. And everybody else has a space, everybody else has things except for us over here, and we're one of the most densely populated sections of the city. We have the space, we have what we need, and so it's just, I don't understand why we're still kind of like fighting to get a specific space so our children can walk to it, as opposed to me finding a car or a ride or the other things to get them in different sections. And so I'm really looking forward to you all really pushing this through for us, because there's a lot of families in Grove Hall, and this would really, really benefit us greatly.
Great. And Jessica, just for the record, are you referring to a specific site that you want to see it on?
So I know that Project Right has been working closely, with the neighbors, like with the neighborhood, and there is a lot across from the Berg that is available. I know that there was issues, but it was really interesting how the dispensary really kind of, got put through really quickly, but yet we still don't have a youth center or a space for families and youth and kids. If something comes up, like, we don't really have anywhere that we can go to for safety. And so I'm really there's a lot of empty spaces in Grove Hall that could really accommodate something like this. And if funding is available, it really would be awesome to see this pushed through.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for bringing that to this forum, Jessica. All right. Next, I think we're going to go to, we have a few video testimonies. And I think, again, if you've signed up to testify tonight and you haven't had a chance to make it to the Zoom yet, now would be a great time. Or if you are watching and you want to testify, sign up at boston.gov/budget-testify, or shoot us an email at ccc.wn@boston.gov. Can we, for staff, can we queue up the videos that we've got?
My name is Lydia Lowe. I'm the Executive Director of the Chinatown Community Land Trust, and I want to offer the following testimony. The COVID pandemic has laid bare the structural inequalities and housing insecurity that threaten our lower income, working class neighborhoods, particularly communities of color, whose future in the city is at risk. But as we emerge from the pandemic with new federal funding coming down, we can seize this opportunity as a transformative moment for the city, one in which we take a stand for housing as a human right and work to increase socially owned, permanently affordable housing that can keep our families and communities here for generations to come. With that transformation in mind, I urge you to first double the city's budget for rental subsidies from $5 to $10 million to keep those most vulnerable to displacement in their homes and in the city, and seek opportunities to pair those subsidies with permanently affordable community-controlled housing. Second, prioritize acquisition of existing housing in order to remove these properties from the market and turn them into permanently affordable housing. The prior mayor had set a goal of 1,000 units by 2030, but with 908 properties going to speculative investors and cash sales in the year before the pandemic, we should challenge ourselves to use the new federal dollars and get to our 1,000 unit goal by 2024. This is possible if we increase funding for the Acquisition Opportunity Program by tripling the maximum allowable subsidy from $100,000 to $300,000, as other cities in the greater Boston area have already done. I ask that the current operating budget include immediate triple funding for the AOP, with additional federal funding to be added to stabilize both our residential tenants and our community small businesses. With 225 out of 407 units previously funded through AOP removed from the speculative market, we could get to 1,000 units by 2024 by allocating some $200 million from the incoming $500 million American Rescue Plan Act funds slated for the City of Boston. In order to allow our community land trusts, who are particularly focused on this type of small property acquisition, to move more quickly and compete for acquisitions on the market, I ask that you establish a specific community land trust fund of $5 million annually to support community ownership of land that stabilizes neighborhoods with permanently affordable homes, small businesses, and urban farms. Finally, I hope that the city will increase support for new construction of affordable housing as well, particularly at the income levels most needed by our communities, and to include family and senior housing, homelessness prevention, and reinvestment in public housing. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Minnie McMahon, and I'm the coordinator of the Greater Boston Community Land Trust Network. We are a network of 7 community land trusts working to protect our communities through permanent community ownership of land, and we uphold the use value of land over its exchange value. With COVID relief coming from the federal government, we can be bold and clear about what we care about as a city. Housing is a human right, as is the right to grow one's own food. And our communities are places, not products. And this moment demands that we put our public investments in the right place. So please raise the AOP cap from $100,000 per unit to $300,000 per unit. Deferred maintenance is a huge problem. AOP is a great program, but we need more money. Please invest in it to make it match the realities in the city. Please seed a $5 million CLT dedicated fund. We do a lot of great work with farms, businesses, housing, open space, but we have to scrap together deals on the open market. So please fund our work. We will get much further if we have a dedicated fund. Double DND funds, please, for ecological agricultural projects and food forest development. Fund 25 new urban farms by 2025. And we ask that you invest in small businesses by providing property acquisition funding, low interest loans, as well as technical support to small businesses in concert with CLTs so that we can permanently preserve our small businesses. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan Bailey, and I'm a resident of East Boston. 2 weeks ago, a pending Boston landmark at 38 Lexington Street in East Boston was demolished. The demolished house was a modest worker's cottage built in 1843 that was home to generations of working families. East Boston has retained a working-class identity throughout its history, and this house provided a sense of continuity and connection with working people who made homes in East Boston in the past. This is now the second pending landmark that's been demolished in East Boston in the past 3 years. When we demolish historic buildings like 38 Lexington, we don't just lose a connection to the past and context for the present. We also lose naturally occurring affordable housing and affordable commercial spaces for local businesses, replacing them with expensive new construction. And we send tons of demolition debris to landfills and commit to the carbon emissions and pollution required to construct a new building. If Boston hopes to retain its identity as a destination and cultural center that values its history, if we're truly committed to preventing displacement and meeting Boston's goals of becoming a zero-waste, zero-carbon city, we need to start thinking of existing buildings as cultural resources, economic resources, and environmental resources that must be actively managed and conserved. The Landmarks Commission is the city agency that is currently tasked with documenting and managing our existing buildings and places. So I ask that you fund the Landmarks Commission in a way that allows them to do their job, to update surveys, to understand and document the city's cultural resources, and to process a backlog of pending landmarks. This is crucial work, and if we don't fund it appropriately, we will continue to lose buildings like 38 Lexington, squandering the resources of our built environment. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much to all who submitted videos in advance. We really appreciate that. And I see now that we have Domingos de Rosa, who I know who has also signed up to testify, a candidate for City Council at Large. Domingos, you have the floor.
Hi, guys. I got off work a little late. Hi, everybody. Thank you for hosting this meeting. I just wanted to talk a little bit about, city budget. I know we're getting to the final days before the council makes an approval on how we move forward for the 2022. I just wanted to be, real mindful about how we vote on this. There's a lot of issues going on in the city that it's not in the forefront of things that folks are looking to have increased. For me, I'm here tonight to speak on the fact that we continue to close our BPS schools. We continue to take away programs that affect folks directly. I know that Acting Mayor Kim Janey has made BCYF accessible to all Bostonians for $0 to nothing, to make sure that we have these services throughout the summers. If we can make sure that when the body does take a vote, to make sure that we think about these other issues like youth homelessness, the 5,000 families who are living in shelters across Massachusetts. A lot of them require transportation to and from the hotels that they stay out of, scattered sites and so forth. For also to think about the gun violence that's going on in the city of Boston, how we can better allocate funds from the BPD budget. Also, to keep in mind our young people who have started their own campaign called Pick Up the Bikes, Put Down the Guns. This is something that, for me, is something that I've been involved with for a majority of my life. I ride ATVs and dirt bikes. They've come to me a few times asking for a location. I know that's not something that we're going to be able to do, within the next few weeks, but it's something for folks to think about when we take some of these funds and we're talking about putting in programs for youth violence and how we can redirect their energies. Also on the BPS budget, for us to also remember that a lot of the services that we will be removing from these different schools, the Timothy schools closing, a lot of the youth that go to that schools are going to be added to that population of young folks who are going to be running around the city doing different things. For us to just be mindful before we make that, that initial vote, that we consider all Bostonians, from our youngest to our oldest. So I appreciate you guys hosting this meeting and allowing us to be a part of it. I also look forward to working with you guys on other issues.
Great. Thank you, Domingo, so much for that testimony. Appreciate it. And now I think we've got a few more folks signed up who haven't come into the Zoom room yet. So my plan, like I said, is to hold this room open until at least 7 o'clock. So if you're watching at home and you still want to testify, please do come join us in the Zoom. If you don't have the link, email ccc.wm@boston.gov or go to boston.gov/budget-testify. Yeah, I'm just really grateful for everybody for participating tonight. And it's obviously been a long budget process so far, and there's another few weeks yet left to run, but public testimony is really important to all of us. Kaimani, one sec.
Hi,
Kaimani,
since we're talking.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I see. Since we're still waiting on other folks, feel free to, if you want to add another comment.
Yeah, I would. Since we're talking about the budget, I'd like to know, how are we going to ensure that BPS isn't giving money that we're essentially giving them to therefore then fund other harmful organizations, or just organizations period, that they're not vetting appropriately? what role does the city council plan to take in making sure that BPS is doing their due diligence when it comes to even the idea or thoughts of funding their partner organizations?
Thank you, Kaimani, for that. And I think, we've all seen the sort of disturbing context about BSAC and the youth on board and the real concerns about the oversight there. Obviously, for folks watching at home on the school budget, there's kind of a double layer here. So the school budget in its detail is formally voted on by the Boston School Committee, which is appointed by the mayor. And then the request that comes before the city council is the request about the sort of total top line number that gets funded by the council for the budget. And so we're not technically the body on the granular detail of the school department, but we take the responsibility to oversee that very seriously. And that's the reason why we've had 9 hearings with them through this process. And to your point, I think that we, at the council, definitely, there's a couple of fronts. On the question of partnerships, I think we're, like I said, we all feel like there's obviously a total lack of due diligence that happened with the BSAC contractor, and it does, to your point, raise questions about, are we doing enough due diligence on all of our partnership contracts? And so I know the superintendent has made new commitments on that front. I think it's fair to say it's on the council to be a check on that and be checking in and asking the department, what are you doing on this front? I think there's then also a question about the federal funding. I know that was brought up by Sharon tonight. So I just wanted to raise that we're also with that technically not the appropriating body. So technically that's the school committee, and they're the ones who actually vote on how BPS is going to spend its federal funds. But we've been very clear with the department that we do expect to have an understanding of how they're planning on programming the FY22 federal funds in advance of any budget vote from this body. Because obviously the funds that are 2 or 3 years out, it's fair to say there needs to be a whole robust community process. And BPS has convened a community consultation committee that's been meeting. It's met twice so far. It's meeting again, I think, next week. But at the same time, for the council to authorize this BPS budget, we need to be confident that they're spending their federal dollars for the year ahead wisely and well. And also, to your point, Kamani, that they're spending any dollars on partnerships in a way that's accountable and robust. So, I think the superintendent's obviously submitted to us a number of ways in which they're going to be vetting those more strenuously going forward. I think it's clear that the vetting was not up to snuff previously, and the situation that you and other BSAC members were subjected to is pretty, infuriating to the council. And so I think it's definitely underscored for us the need to be attentive to those things and to really question where we are on partnership fronts, because partnerships can be great where they add value, but they shouldn't be a sort of nether space that public funds go and there isn't accountability. So grateful to you for raising that. Domingos, I see you have a hand up again. Happy to entertain that.
Yes, just came to mind. I just wanted to ask, does the council know how many contracts are still in the negotiation and what those percentages were for the upgrades? You mean
city worker contracts?
Yeah, city employee contracts, as far as like ASME, NAGE,
yeah.
SEIU.
So the situation for anybody watching at home is this. Almost all city departments, their contracts ran out last June 30th. So almost all city departments have been out since July 1. And then the firefighters go out this June 30 and the teachers go out in August. So functionally, basically all city worker contracts are out right now. And the trouble is, although the Office of Labor Relations obviously is negotiating on those fronts, I think it's fair to say politically that one might not expect very many of those contracts to be settled prior to November. That's just that has to do with, right, like when they're negotiating, like unions are also making their judgments. And the reality is, I think a lot of people want to know kind of who they've got as a partner in that negotiation for the next 4 years. So we might reach contract agreements in the next few months. I don't know, because the council's role is that contracts get brought to us once they're approved. They don't get brought to us in the process, right? So it has to be the OLR and the union reaches an agreement, and then it comes to us for ratification. But my overall sense is that we're not likely to get a lot of those ratified and come into us before the election in the fall. So what that means from a budgeting perspective is that there's a $10 million collective bargaining reserve, which basically means like we don't know which contracts will involve what percentage increases, et cetera. So there's kind of a $10 million pot that's been put aside for the city for dealing with increases that come out of the contracting process for this fiscal year in general. But frankly, Domingos, things are pretty up in the air on that front. And
Okay, am I still on?
yeah, you're
The
still
reason why I asked that is because, this new budget comes out July 1st. And to my understanding, the city, is offering, direct services, a 1.5%, depending on how big the department is and who accepts that. It will affect the 2022 budget. And, we're asking as a city, we're asking to reallocate funds from different departments to make sure that services continue to grow. When the city has allotted the police department $20 million worth of increase for the next fiscal year, and folks are still in that negotiation, and we can't see what kind of overtime we're going to put out for 2022. We're just assuming that we're going to probably be at that 72 million or maybe a little higher, even though they hired like something like 94 new police officers, but we're still short another 400 officers for BPD. And it to me, as a resident, it doesn't seem to make sense that the overtime budget seems to increase every year by another $20 million from year to year. And this body approves, already set overtime, and then we go way beyond that budget that we've put money aside for, and it seems like it's draining other departments. BPS shouldn't be closing schools, especially when we need our students to have the opportunities to be able to go to schools within their communities. Like, we're not asking. I live in Hyde Park, and the children in Hyde Park, they have to travel to Charlestown. That's a long distance taking the T, and the T is not always that reliable. And I don't see any parent should have to put a 13-year-old on a bus to go to school to travel across the city because we're trying to pull money from one department to make sure that we stay within the agreements with these different contracts.
Yeah, so I guess what I'd say to that, a couple things. So the city is not budgeting an increase to the police department. It's budgeting a small decrease to the police department budget and a substantial decrease from the police department actuals. And that gets to your overall point, which is I think the council is as frustrated as you by the fact that because of a 1983 law, basically the police and fire departments are allowed to overrun their budgets on an overtime basis. And in fairness, the presumption there is that the reason that we do it is because of emergency expenditure needs. And I think everyone would agree that if there's a fire or a bombing or whatever, that we want the police and the fire to be able to respond. But it has turned into a dynamic where we have consistent overtime overruns, to your point, that are beyond what's been budgeted for. And that's something that the council's been pushing on considerably in the past year. what we've achieved is a decrease in the overtime budget, but not the kind of decrease that was budgeted last year. And certainly to achieve the decrease budgeted this year would be substantial. I think the questions about whether that permission to go over overtime should be unlimited, it should be, and it is an open political question. And I also think that like the reality is you need police department or like leadership that considers it like part of their job to actually hit the budget targets. And in my personal opinion, that involves civilian fiscal oversight. But yeah, I think that's a very open conversation and question. I would say on the contract front, all contracts for any of the departments that are out, including police, but any of them, right, that get settled. So what happens is the administration and the unions are going to negotiate them at the table. And then when they reach what they think is a provisional agreement, they will need to be approved at the council. And certainly I think that the council is, and I can say this as a Ways and Means chair, because all contract proposals come to my committee first and foremost. You know, the council's very committed to the idea that settled contracts that come to us for ratification need to be responsible and responsible in light of the overall city budget and responsible in light of exactly the trade-offs that you mentioned. The question of, you know, any given city dollar, where is it going to, and how are we thinking about that as value for taxpayers? And so I will just say that I think we're very mindful of that issue. So I appreciate you raising it tonight. We do have another member of the public who's here to testify. So I just want to go to, I think you're under Eastie Farm, but give me 1 second. So Eastie Farm, if you can identify yourself by name and your affiliation or residence, that would be great. And then welcome to give your public testimony. But you do have to unmute yourself.
Hello, Councillor Bob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm unfortunately not able to hear you. I'm in a noisy setting, but I just wanted to thank the council for considering the budget for CSA, for various organizations around the city, and also for constructing raised beds around the city for community use. So thank you for that.
Great. And is this Kanan by chance? Can you just identify yourself?
Oh, this is Kanan from Eastie Farm.
Great. Awesome. That's what I thought, just so people know. Thank you, Kanan. Appreciate the commentary.
Thank you, Councillor Bob.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, great. And all right, and I think with that, we've gone through the folks who are here to testify this evening, and we've also played the videos that we received. So as I noted, I'll be holding the room open for at least another 15 minutes until 7 o'clock. So if you're watching at home, feel free to come join us. One more time, you can email ccc.wm@boston.gov to get the link, or you can go to boston.gov/budget-testify, and that'll give you the way to sign up to join us on the Zoom. So I'll be waiting here for at least another 15 minutes just to make sure we get everybody in. But in the meantime, I want to thank my colleagues, again, Ed Flynn, Matt O'Malley, and Julia Mejia for joining me this evening to hear from the members of the public. And I see we've got Councillor Flynn, if you want to say any words, feel free.
Yeah, thank you, Council Block. Council Block, just wanted to ask you a quick question. If the listening public is watching on television and they don't want to testify in video, they can also send us an email. Could you give out that email information? It might be helpful to some of the residents as well.
Absolutely, sure. I'll give it one more time. So it's ccc.wm@boston.gov. So that's WM for Ways and Means. So M as in mother. So ccc.wm@boston.gov. We'd be delighted to receive any written testimony from anybody, and we do share that with the whole council. So we'll go into the public record on the budget.
Yeah, thank you, Council Block. And when I receive letters from my constituents about any issue, I read it through, and I know my colleagues do as well. So we take comments from the public very seriously.
Absolutely. You know, we consider it our jobs here on the council to represent you in this budget process. And obviously we hear a great deal from lots of groups throughout the year, and we talk to many of our constituents, but it's always valuable to us to hear specifically from people on the budget. So if you are watching the budget process and you feel like you have a perspective and it hasn't been represented, that's where we really hope that you'll reach out and make your voice heard. So the council will take an initial vote on the budget next Wednesday, June 9th. Traditionally, we expect that the budget scrutiny process will continue after that until the end of the month of June. So we're definitely open for feedback and commentary throughout the month ahead. But grateful to everybody who came out to testify tonight. And thanks again, Councillor Flynn, for being here, and Councillors O'Malley and Mejia. And with that, I will call a recess, and this hearing will be recessed until such a time as we're joined by anyone else who might want to testify before 7. So we'll just recess for the moment.
Councilor, and then you'll call me and let me know when people come back to the public hearing, so I can.
Absolutely, I'll shoot you a text if we have anybody who's a late arrival.
Okay, so text me and then I'll come back. I'm gonna log off for now. Okay.
Great, thanks so much, Councilor Mejia. Councilor Arroyo, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I see we've got Leon Rivera here. So Leon, I'm gonna give you a chance to testify publicly. Councilor Arroyo, before Leon goes, if you just want to say a quick word of welcome. We've had Councilor Flynn and Mejia and O'Malley with us, and we've heard from a number of members of the public, and we had just taken a quick recess because we had run out of folks testifying. But if you want to say a quick word of welcome, and then I know Leon's just joined us, so I'll give him a chance to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to say thank you to the community for speaking on this budget. I'll be watching that tape back. I was at a community meeting and I just got out to come to this, and then I have another one later, but I wanted to make sure that I was here to hear community input, and I will actually rewatch all of this hearing to ensure that I don't miss any community input in terms of this budget and what they want this budget to reflect in terms of our values as a city. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to everybody who's taking the time to participate.
Great, thank you so much, Councilor Arroyo. And yes, we had some great testimony earlier, so it'll be well worth watching. Leon Rivera, if you want to just introduce yourself, say your residence or affiliation, and then go ahead and share your testimony on the FY22 proposed budget.
How you doing, Councilor? Leon Rivera here, Roxbury. So I was going over a few things on the budget. I see that there is $4 million coming into the Boston Public Health Commission. I don't see a breakdown of that. So I'm wondering, do we know if there's any of that money going towards 24-hour outreach efforts when it comes to recovery services, specifically for Mass and Cass?
Thanks, Leon. I know that some of that money is tabbed for Mass and Cass, but it might take me a little bit of digging just to figure out how much of it. I know that, so with the BPHC increases, some of it is for Mass and Cass, some of it is for like cost increases. BPHC is the only department we have where they carry their like pensions and benefits on the department budget. And so you see some annual increases that get carried as part of that, but are kind of, they're not real increases in terms of like what the public sees and services. So that's, I think the detailed answer to your question, we can chase budget for and circle back to you on, but I appreciate it because it's such an area of focus for the council and for many others right now. If you want to add anything else on the priority of that, feel free.
That's fine. And if you can, maybe we could follow up on that. I'm just wondering because I see that there's also 3.5 million going towards homelessness. I know that there's a lot of efforts happening right now in the area, but something that we've been advocating for here in the community is 24-hour outreach, also supportive housing opportunities, not just in the South End and Lower Roxbury, but throughout the city. So if we can get a little more information on that, that would be great. I'll still be digging on my side to see if I find anything online, but that'll be good. Thank you.
I think we can definitely get you more detail on that. And since we have you signed up for testimony, we have your email address so we can get that to you.
Thanks.
Appreciate the comments. Great, awesome. All right. So thank you to Leon for joining us. And I think we'll hold it open for a few more minutes. It's 7 now, but I'll just hold it until 7:15, and then we'll see if we've got anybody else joining us before we gavel out. I do really just want to thank everybody who's joined tonight. And again, if you're watching this after the fact and you didn't get a chance to testify, email us, like Councilor Flynn said, ccc.wm@boston.gov. We really do read all those comments. And if you're still watching and you want to come testify, last chance, the URL is boston.gov/budget-testify. And there's a way there to sign up and get the Zoom link to come join us in the room tonight. So I'll just continue to hold this space open until 7:15. And then we'll see whether, if we don't have anybody, we'll adjourn at that point. So thanks so much. All right, hello everyone. Thank you again so much to the members of the public who testified tonight and to my colleagues for joining us. We're also joined by Councillor Lydia Edwards, in addition to Councillor Flynn, Councillor O'Malley, Councillor Mejia, and Councillor Arroyo. Yeah, again, I just want to say one more time, if you're watching this after the fact and you'd like to testify to the council, you can send your written testimony to ccc.wm@boston.gov. We'll also be having our hearing on the Boston Planning and Development Agency's budget tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And you're welcome to testify at that. You can sign up in the same place. And otherwise, the council will be continuing to consider the city's proposed budget throughout June, including an anticipated resubmission. So as ever, we're grateful to the members of the public for weighing in, and grateful to council colleagues for all their attention throughout this process. So with that, this hearing of the City Council's Ways and Means Committee is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good night.